Your company, I'd argue, has the best vantage point to tell us what's really going on the ground in Hong Kong. Based on what you're seeing, and I'll leave it up to you what metric to use, how do you compare what's happening now with the lows that we had in early 2020?
There is a sense of deja vu, obviously, and that's where it makes people very nervous. Once you have that experience in 2020, and then we reopened, and people were doing all their own activities freely. And now with this latest tightening, some people are tired, some people are anxious. It certainly affects a lot of business activities. Retail sentiments is not as strong, and it certainly will hurt a lot of businesses, especially the small and medium-sized businesses. What I think is encouraging is that the government have finally come around to decide to do something drastic, together with the support of the mainland officials. It's much better to be drastic and quick than to have this drag on. So I'm encouraged by what's happening over the last few days and the decisions that are going to be made. And hopefully we see a turnaround very quickly.
Right. And since you brought it up, George, I mean, this hits you, but it also, I guess indirectly what you're saying, it might also benefit us longer term. Would you be in favor of a city lockdown?
I think there are challenges about how to do that for a city that is so densely populated. People are in a lot of high-rise apartment buildings. The lockdown procedures will be a lot more difficult to implement than in a lot of countries. That's probably I guess the most drastic scenario. Hopefully there are easier way to deal with this. And one that I think what's happening in the last few weeks also is encouraging is the vaccination rate is increasing very quickly.
I think, George, I think we're just having some audio issues with my co-anchor, Yvonne. Let me just pick up there, though, to what you mentioned. Just try and, I guess, what are your assumptions for the next months ahead in terms of leases? And do you expect asset prices to fall over the medium term? And if they do, are you prepared to pick up more assets?
We see rent under pressure. We have to support our tenants to survive through this period. Usually with short-term measures, rental concessions or waivers for a short period of time for those that are seriously hurt. But we for longer-term lease negotiation is about belief in the long run. We're signing 3-5-year leases, so we can't really let just 1 or 2 months of impact to affect those discussions. So in the short run, we are as helpful as we can to, and also making sure that the tenants get the right support and getting shoppers back ASAP. Price-wise, I think it's less about COVID, more about, I guess, whether this will lead to any financial distress of any property owners in Hong Kong and China. And China has a lot of people will look at it, and not just because of COVID. There's a lot of financial leverage that need to be unwound, and that provides some opportunity for us to look at assets in China.
Sorry about that, George. I'm back now. I just wanted to ask you about when it comes to the rising uncertainty on the outlook on Hong Kong. We were just talking to Steve about Citigroup moving some of their equity staff to places like Singapore. There's an attrition problem at the SFC. Does the uncertainty in Hong Kong lead to you to maybe build on your exposure elsewhere, or maybe even reduce your footprint in Hong Kong in any way?
I think it is very hard to use 1 or 2 examples to extrapolate. Companies, especially MNCs, that have used Hong Kong as a regional head office, no doubt will have, for their own reasons and also the family reason for their own staff, to station some people outside of Hong Kong, because the travel coming in and out has caused a lot of strain. But by and large, I think every city that goes through deep crisis like this one, which is caused by the virus, but will bounce back, and Hong Kong have shown resilience over many cycles, many crises, and so I'm not too concerned about Hong Kong's medium and long-term future. The short term, I think we all need to sort of hunker down and try to stay positive and test negative, and try to go through this period.
Have you gotten any more clarity from the government on how they're going to be enforcing these vaccine passports at shopping malls? And do you see possibly that hurting the numbers when it comes to whether it's foot traffic or even retail sales?
I think the government is looking at how to change the app that we currently use. One of the features of the apps in Hong Kong is that it doesn't really have a tracking ability. So you scan a QR code going into certain venues. And when the government talk about a vaccine bubble and passports and all that for shopping centers, it's more complicated than that, because someone coming into a shopping center need to scan a QR code, go to a restaurant, you scan a QR code, you come out to this restaurant, go back to the shopping center, you scan another one. It's just without a tracking function, it makes it very difficult to identify where someone is and at what period of time. So I think the government is looking at changing that app. If that has a tracking function, I think will be helpful. Obviously, that raises other issues, privacy and all that, which one need to be considering as well. But the indication is that there is a reliance of certain operators, especially restaurants, to make sure that people going in are going to have the vaccine passport. Shopping center less so. And the rationale is very simple. When you go through a shopping center, you don't stay at one spot. You always wear a mask. If you go into a restaurant, you're sitting down, taking your mask off. And so having the vaccine passport inside a restaurant is more important than when you walk through a shopping center. So I think those have been clarified since the announcement, but further detail we're still waiting for before it is implemented on the 24th.
George, the last time we spoke, you also mentioned some progress on your Vision 2025, and you've talked about some of the moves you're making on the mainland. Could you talk to us a little bit more about what your priorities are right now outside Hong Kong?
Yeah, Vision 2025 includes a number of initiatives. One of it is to diversify and grow our portfolio. And for the diversification, we started in 2017, 2018 to look beyond Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a small place, and as our portfolio grows, we do need to look beyond it. We started off in China, the 4 Tier 1 cities. In the recent months, we have increased our investments in Australia by quite a lot, including shopping centers and office portfolios in Sydney. And so we think that this will allow us, through that diversification, to lower the risk, to be more resilient over different property cycles. Rather than being overly reliant on one city. But having said that, we are diluting Hong Kong by adding more outside, but not really selling out of Hong Kong as such. Hong Kong is still our core market. We still, we just put in a bid for a project last Friday, and so if we have good opportunities in Hong Kong, we'll continue to put a priority to that.
Obviously, a lot of distressed companies in China right now. We continue to follow the property story there. Is there any sort of interest from Link to pick up some of these projects?
We have it is at a good price. I think there is a challenge when some of the property companies, when they think about disposal, some of the assets are already in the control of the banks, or they have leverage at such a high rate that that they don't have control of a net proceed that is meaningful for them to dispose of the better assets. So it is a challenge, and I think the banks need to also get to a stage where they recognize that it's better to release these assets to the market. rather than hope that there will be a turnaround in the property sector in China. So it is not just the owner, the developers who are hanging on right now, but the banks are probably need to get to a stage where they become a bit more realistic about valuation before they can be released to the market.